I left home at 18 years of age because of the excessive favoritism that my family showed towards my brother. Well, some unfortunate events happened, and now they're begging that I come back, but I tell them, hey, I don't want to be a part of this family anymore. Well, I'm going to walk you through the whole debacle because this story is absolutely wild. Hello everyone, this is my tragic life story, and I'm still traumatized and struggling with it. I've kept all the names and places hidden because I don't want my husband and in-laws to find out where I'm at because this can put my daughter's life at risk. I'm the only daughter of a conservative Arab family. In Arab culture, there are significant differences in the life of men and women. To describe the meaning of being born as a girl in the Arab family, you're raised to become a young bride, live under constant control, and are constantly told that you're inferior to men. Of course, these are just summarized headings. That was my life. My family was deeply attached to the traditions, and my father was even ashamed of me for being a girl, and I could not easily leave the house. I had to do all the tasks my mother gave me, or else I would be beaten. My brother, on the other hand, was the opposite. He was always free and could do whatever he wanted. When I started school, I began to learn new things. Girls my age were living different lives, and I was embarrassed to talk about my own family. My mother would call me to come home as soon as school was over, so I would go straight home. I could not study because my mother would say that studying was unnecessary and would make me do household chores. In middle school, due to my family's Muslim beliefs, I had to wear a veil. My father said I was old enough and it was appropriate for a Muslim girl to wear one. My brother did not like me much. When he came home, he would not talk to me and would only give me tasks to do for him. If I resisted, he would hurt me. I didn't have many friends when I went to school, and I loved reading books. But I would keep them at school because if I brought them home, my father would just shred them up. My father did not like me going to school either, but since school was mandatory, he couldn't say much. My mother, she pressured me every day, saying that when I become a bride, I would have to serve my husband, questioning what kind of girl I was. When I turned 18, they dropped me out of college. And, well, my father started looking for potential suitors. According to tradition, when a girl turns 18 years of age, it's time for her to get married. When I turned 18, my father told me I was going to get married. He even found someone. A groom had been found, but I did not want this discriminatory and traditional life anymore. I decided that I could not bear it any longer. And one early morning, I ran away from home before anyone woke up. At first, when I ran from home, I struggled a lot because I had no one. My first step was to remove my headscarf, and I finally felt free. I stayed on the streets as soon as I could and just gathered up some money. I bought a ticket to another city. I met a man who claimed to help young girls, and since I knew nothing about the world, I believed him, and I went with him. When I went to his house, he was initially nice, but after a while, he started beating me whenever he didn't like the food he ate or when he saw a small mess in the house. So I ran away from that house too, taking all the money that he had, and I went to a distant city. I had enough money to rent a small apartment for myself, and I wandered around for a while, and I even looked for a job and found a cashier position. 2 years passed, and I had even been promoted to the cashier job. I was managing and openly studying high school. My boss was a woman, and she supported me. One day, an unknown number called my phone, and when I answered, my mother told me that my brother had passed away and that I needed to attend the funeral. I asked her how the heck did she get my number and why she wanted me to come. She told me that they found out about my workplace through my social media. She said that if I did not come to the funeral, my father would come to take me. So I took a day or two off from work and went to my family. When I returned home that day of the funeral, at first they found it strange to see me without a headscarf. But for some reason, my mother and father were very warm towards me. My mom hugged me and said that she missed me so much and that they were worried sick since I ran away without a word. How shamelessly she lied. They tried to marry me off to a man I barely knew instead of educating me. I stayed with my parents that night, but I hope that they did not try to keep me here because I talked to my boss before coming. If something like this happens, the police will come. The next day, my parents sat me down and my father looked at me properly for the first time in years. They told me that it would be better for me to come back home and that they wanted their other child to stay safe since they've lost one. Hearing this made me absolutely furious. I immediately packed my stuff and told them that blindly clinging to traditions had ruined my life, and then left the house to hit the road. When I got back home, I wanted to take some time to think, and the next day I went back to work. My phone has not stopped ringing for days. My family keeps calling me all the time, just trying to convince me to come back home. My mother said that she wanted to visit me, and I was considering refusing, but I also wanted to know what she meant. So I told her to come. In the evening, my mother and I went home, and while I was taking a shower and getting settled, my mother prepared dinner. While we were eating, my mother starts to cry. She apologized to me and asked me to forgive her for their past mistakes, and I felt really sad. Maybe they have changed. Perhaps my brother's death taught them a valuable lesson. My father has been very disturbed since I left, and they regret being so attached to the Arab tradition and not seeing the tradition of their children. I told my mother that I could give them a chance, but I needed some more time to think. My mother stayed with me for 2 more days and treated me better than ever before. Then she went back to my father. After talking to my mother, I started considering going back. I could find a job there and reconcile with my family. They also seem regretful, but what if everything is a lie? My mind was in a turmoil, and I had a fear of making the wrong decision if they have not truly changed. A week later, my father visits me at work, right? We walked around and talked, and I told him that my mother had said some things to me, and my father said that he had felt very lonely after my brother died. When I returned to my father's house, I told him I would find a job and continue working, also attending evening high school. My father's expression seemed a bit down, but he didn't say anything, and my father left, and I went to work to explain that I could not continue working, and well, I'm going to return to my family. My boss was happy that my relationship with my family was improving. She told me to call her if anything bad happened again, and she was truly a kind soul. I rushed home and started packing my things. I called my mother and told her I was coming home. She was so overjoyed. A few weeks later, I returned to my parents' place completely, and I could not find a job, so I was just studying at the evening high school. My parents weren't the same as when I first came back. When my mother saw me study again, she started to complain. Nagging. She kept saying how shameful it was for me to be an unmarried woman. My father, seeing me back for dinner, told me that I should wear the veil again and adhere to our traditions. I was getting more and more uneasy as the days grew. My father started to prevent me from leaving the house, and my mother, she started assigning me to tasks again. One day, after a conversation with our Arab neighbor, my father started yelling at me. He accused me of engaging in immoral activities when I ran away, saying that's why I've become unvirtuous. He beat me, locked me in my room, depriving me of food and water for 2 days. My mother continued to live as if nothing happened. It was a mistake to even consider that they've changed. My mother takes away my computer. She threw away my books. Everything felt like it was starting over. I'd become that little girl again. They kept me under constant control to make sure I adhered to their traditions. My mother constantly pressured me to fulfill religious duties. I didn't know how I could escape. This place was like hell. I was forcibly veiled again, and I had become a servant at home once more. Our visiting relatives were so shameful to me. Through relatives, my father was planning to marry me off, and they were making arrangements to find someone for my mother, and she hid it from me. I found it hidden in the bedroom and called my boss, explaining the situation and asked for help to escape. My mother caught me on the phone, then locked me in the room again. They think I should marry and live off of my husband's money, and because he's a man, he would take care of me. And my family, they discussed how it's shameful that their daughter's still unmarried, as if I'm a flawed woman. This is a complete madness mess, and I begged my mother to not marry me, please. But she would not listen. I have not even met the man, but my family was already planning our marriage. They had to set the date for 2 months later, and my mother said that I should be happy and we would go shopping. Finally, days later, I managed to go outside, and we were looking at wedding-related things. At the store, I gave my boss's number to one of the staff and left a message with the date and location of my wedding. After finishing shopping, my father came over. He sent my mother home and took me to the hospital. My father said I needed to take a virginity test before the marriage. Luckily, I had not been in any relationship, so the test came back negative. Seeing the results, my father took me straight home and locked me in my room. I had to endure until the wedding day. Months passed like this in that room, and the wedding day arrived. Amid the wedding, I managed to escape, and I hid. My boss found me, and we went to the police together. Based on my boss's testimony and the evidence of the marks on my body, the police punished my mom and dad. I started staying with my boss, but the man and his family, who still wanted to marry me, they were starting to scare me. What's up, everyone? Mr. Reddito here. I have 4 comments that are absolutely going against each other. Before we hop into the first update, we're going to read from the original post comments, with comment number 1 saying this. Oh my gosh, this is heartbreaking. No one should ever have to go through this level of torment. Tradition is no excuse for abuse and torture. You're incredibly strong for sharing this and getting through it, and it's a real eye-opener for many of us. I hope you find true peace and happiness and safety. Comment number 2. Sorry, but you went back to them even after they mistreated you. I mean, you had a second chance. You were living a good life away from them. You should have known better than to trust them again after the way they treated you. You're the one that made a big mistake. Comment number 3. Victim blaming user 2? Really? OP was emotionally manipulated and torn between longing for a loving family and a history of abuse. Your simplistic view on this situation is insensitive. If anything, we should be supportive and uplifting of OP, not blaming her for taking actions under duress. Comment 4. While I feel for you, one can't help but wonder why you did not cut all ties the moment you escaped the first time. Why even entertain the idea of going back? Protect yourself at all times, and always be cautious. Don't let emotions override logic. Update number 1. I returned to work under my boss, and there had not been anything bothering me for a while. I rented a new place for myself, and after those incidents, I had nowhere to stay. So I was staying with my boss. One day, a woman came to my workplace. She was asking about me, and I got nervous and asked her why she was looking for me. The woman started yelling at me, saying that I had disgraced her son. She turned out to be the mother of the man that I was about to marry. I asked her how she found me, and she said my father had told them. She claimed that I needed to marry to protect my honor, and I still could not escape from these people. When the woman saw my hair uncovered, she tried to attack me. The security personnel at my workplace kicked her out, and my boss told me that my family issues were causing too much disruption at work, and that I should find another job. My boss was right. Those crazy people knew my location, and I could not work there any longer. I continued to work for another week while applying for job postings and such. They were hiring store managers, and I did have a lot of experience, so I was able to easily secure the job. My new workplace was just a few streets away from my current apartment, and it had been 2 weeks since I started my new job. I received a message on my phone. My father was asking where I was, and after finishing work one day, I went to the police and obtained a restraining order against my family. This way, the messages and calls stopped, and a man came to the store holding flowers. He asked for my name, and after I told him, he extended the flowers to me and proposed. Everybody at the store was looking at me in surprise, and I declined his proposal and asked him, who are you? He gets angry and revealed that he was the person I left high and dry at the wedding. I was surprised, and I told him that I would call the police if he did not leave. He threw the flowers at me and left, saying that this was not over, and I was at a loss of what to do. I could not keep finding new jobs, and I could not move either. Update number 2. I had been running away from that man and his family for a long time. I constantly had to change jobs, but now I could not find work anymore. Because of my troubled situation, they did not want to hire me. Finally, I found a job as a nanny. I was staying with the family and taking care of their children, and I changed my phone number even, only giving to my former boss, who was the only one helping me. I did not go out much from home just to avoid being found. I finished high school through distance education and was saving money for university. The restraining order my family had against me was expiring in a few days. I had not told the family I worked for about these issues. I was still afraid of not being hired. I received a message from my father and mother on my phone saying that my father was hospitalized and waiting for me to visit. Well, I didn't go because I thought that the same events would unfold if I went again. My mother, she kept insisting that I come, and she even manipulated me by saying that my father's last wish, and I was confused. But I decided to go and got permission from work and went to the hospital. My father, like my brother, he had heart problems, and his health worsened after I ran away again. I told them how they could have the nerve to call me back after all that happened, and my mother knelt at my feet, saying there was no one left to take care of them, and if my father died, she would be left alone with nothing. She said that if I got married, that man's wealthy family would take care of them, and the mother of that man entered the hospital room. She ignored me and went straight to my mother, saying that if I did not marry her son, I would have to go to another country to clear my name or die. Well, I was shocked by what I've heard. My mother told me that I came to get married, but I opposed it. Still, my mother silenced me and said I would get married. If I did not get married, they would constantly be after me. I didn't have the money to go to another country. The woman left and turned to my mother, asking her what she had done. My father had agreed with that man's father about the marriage and had requested a, quote, MEHR. Well, what that is a substantial amount of money to be given to the bride. That's why I had to either get married or keep running away forever. I told them that I wanted some time to think about it, and I didn't want to get married, and it was clear. His mother did not like me. I told my mother that I wanted to meet that man and at least get to know each other. I say, quote, that man, because it was clear that he was older than me. I thought I might convince him somehow and at least get out of the situation. I went to meet him. We sat in a cafe and started to chit-chat, trying to get to know each other, and the man was relaxed, as he had already assumed that we were getting married. He had anger issues and had been divorced twice. That's why his family had found someone for him to prevent another divorce. They had given a lot of money to my family for me to marry. When I told him I didn't want to marry, he said I had no right to refuse. I could not even speak up. I could not convince the man no matter what I did. I eventually agreed to the marriage. After all, I had no way to escape. I was taken to his home, and I had to live with him now. His mother just insisted that I should wear the veil again and be suitable for the family. We started preparing for the wedding again, and my old wedding dress was still there, and They took the money I had saved from work, and I could not leave the house, and I had no right to speak up. We had the wedding as soon as possible. Now I was truly married. Living with that man and being with him made me feel disgusted. His mother criticized every move I made and constantly spoke in a demeaning way. His father was the only one who did not treat me rudely. I could not even go to his parents. My mother had never come to see me either. Months after the marriage, his mother entered our bedroom and started asking why we weren't having children. When I told him about his mother pressuring me for children, he gets angry, called me flawed, and belittled me before leaving the house. I truly don't know what to do. A year after our marriage, I found out I was pregnant. Everyone was very happy. After becoming pregnant, they stopped treating me poorly. Finally, I started to feel a bit better. Update number 3. During the early weeks of my pregnancy, everyone was treating me very well. My husband was not angry, and his mother was not complaining. His mother started to ask about the gender of the baby and said that we simply needed to go to the hospital just to find out. I kept telling my husband that I did not want to go and that I was feeling sick, because I was afraid that if it was a girl, everything would go back to the way it was before. Still, as my belly started to grow, my husband ignored my pleas and took me to the hospital. During the checkups, they told us that we were having a baby girl. My husband was disappointed. He did not talk to me until we got back home, and when he entered the house, he left my side without even looking at me. When his mother asked me about the baby's gender, and I said it was a girl, she gets angry and said that I could not even give birth to a boy because of, well, my flaws. Everything was returning to how it used to be. His mother was criticizing me again and constantly making remarks about having a baby girl. My husband had stopped talking to me, and I was doing all the household chores, even though I was pregnant. I managed to tell my mother about the pregnancy only months later, and when I told her it was a girl, she wished for a boy next time. Fearing that the same situation would happen again, I had truly started seeing myself as sick. My pains had intensified, but his mother would not allow me to rest. When I finally told her that I was going to my mother's, she said that they had given her money, and even if I went there, it's no way I can escape from them. So my husband came to drop me off at my mother's place just to make sure that I would not run away. I kept up the appearance and followed his words as he expected of me. I bid my in-laws a goodbye and stepped into the car. It was a long ride, and I was just glad my husband wasn't talking to me. The silence in the car helped me feel better about what I had planned. When I reached my mother's place, he stayed there until I reached the front door. It was only when I raised a hand to ring the doorbell that he left. But I dropped my hand immediately, and I backed off the door, afraid that my mother would catch sight of me through the window, and I made sure that he was nowhere near me before I did it. I slipped through that place and in between the trees. I knew my mother would be sleeping. It was her nap time. But the one person that really scared me was my husband. If I feared anyone finding me, it was him. Because of my fear, it took me longer to escape the particular area than it usually did. I also had my daughter with me, so I had to be very careful. My intention was to find my boss. I knew I could trust her with myself, and I had little money to my name, but I took a taxi to her place anyways. I could not have possibly walked that far. When I arrived, she was not hesitant in bringing me inside. I was grateful when she left me for a while and did not ask me anything about the current issue until I revealed it all to her. Horrified at my situation, she promised to help me out, and in the meantime, she gave me a room just to stay in and cared for me, and in the days that followed, she nursed me back to health. Whenever I was particularly worried about my husband, his family, or even mine, I expressed it to her. Fortunately, instead of getting upset or frustrated at my never-ending issues, she listened to me and encouraged me. It helped me tremendously. I guess it was almost 2 weeks after that she introduced me to this person. I cannot reveal his name for both his safety and mine, but he was that sort of person you could trust with the kind of plan my boss had. Her suggestion was that I leave the place. She understood it was not safe for me. Restraining orders aside, she feared as much as I did that my husband would hurt me and my daughter simply because I hurt his pride. It did not look good in me in any way. I thought it through. Because my boss's suggestion sounded so logical, I agreed to the idea. According to the plan, the man, which was my boss's friend, would help me get out of the state and settle to another. I could not name either place, so bear with me. He'll find me a job, a place to stay, and a person to take care of me until I fully settle. They promised the sort of help that I was sure even my family could not. Heck, you could combine my family and my husband's family, and it would still not be equal to this. Well, it's been a few weeks since I followed through with the suggestions, and when I tell you it's impossible to express my gratefulness to her, I mean it. She has saved not only mine, but also my daughter's life. As a return gift, she has asked that she wants me to take care of us and build a life, now that I am comparatively safe. Honestly, I intend to do just that. Even though I still fear for myself and my baby, I believe I would live the rest of my life in fear. But I want to give my daughter a better life than I've lived. It would certainly not be easy, but I'm going to try my best. That story was a handful. I would hate to be in that position. Let's read some of the comments from the final postings. Comment 1. This story is heartbreaking and chilling. It's a chilling reminder that so many women face such traumatic situation even in today's world. OP, you've shown immense strength and resilience. Never let anyone define your worth, and huge kudos to your former boss. We need more allies like her in the world. Comment 2. How can families still force their daughter into such toxic situations? OP, you're a hero in my eyes for having the courage to protect your daughter from a future like yours. It's a shame not everyone has a guardian angel like your boss, though. She's the real MVP. Stay safe and continue building a bright future for your little one. And here's one of the comments that everybody was ripping to pieces. Comment number 3. This story, it feels a tad dramatized, doesn't it? While I feel for anyone in a challenging situation, the way this narrative unfolds seems almost straight out of a movie. It makes me question the authenticity of some parts just being real. And finally, comment number 4, which also got a lot of criticism. Sure, OP had a tough decision, but running at every turn, there's so many organizations and shelters specifically meant for women in such conditions. Why didn't she seek their help earlier? Seems like she's only deciding to take action when things get really dire. So guys, let me know what you think about those comments. Do you want to talk about comment 4? Because I'll tell you right now, everyone in the update section was saying, don't be so harsh on OP. You don't even know why she ran when she ran. Let me know your thoughts on that, guys. Drop it down below in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every day. I hope to see you tomorrow. But do remember, it's cool to be kind. See ya!